Vanakkam. Let me take this opportunity to welcome all of you, especially our guests tonight, Mr. Abe Quadan and Ms. Victoria Shah. With the great initiative and guidelines of Dr. Arumugam Parasuraman from International Thirukkural Foundation, we could combine our collective efforts towards taking Thirukkural to a UNESCO as a universal literature. This was possible because we, International Thirukkural Foundation Mauritius, Tamil Valarchi Mandram, initiated and conducted successful international conferences in Sydney and in many parts of the world, with variety of themes after the 2019 Sydney conference highlighting underpinning theme Thirukkural and Peace and Harmony, followed by an online conference on Thirukkural and multiculturalism. These conferences have increased the confidence of Dr. Arumugam Parasuraman and his team to host monthly events to further strengthen the evidences to take Thirukkural to UNESCO as a universal literature. The focus of the team was mainly on making this great effort a success. Dr. Arumugam Parasuraman has initiated the first online Thirukkural and UNESCO series on Thiruvalluvar Day in 2021, inviting Honorable Mr. Justice R. Mahadevan, High Court of Australia, High Court of Madras, as our guest speaker. We had the privilege of having many eminent scholars from that time, from various parts of the world, joined us with the signature event of International Thirukkural Foundation, presenting on various aspects of Thirukkural. The purpose was mainly to identify the role and the value of Thirukkural in promoting universality, understand the importance of Thirukkural as a universal literature, creation of action plan to encourage learning Thirukkural among the next generation, to celebrate and promote Thirukkural and Thiruvalluvar. To take Thirukkural as a universal literature to UNESCO was the ultimate aim of this program. Today is another milestone where we have Mr. Abe Quadan with us, and he will be presenting tonight. May I now request Dr. Arumugam Parasuraman to welcome them formally.
Thank you very much, Dr. Chandrika, for your welcome address. Today, in the context of the International Thirukkural Conference under the overarching theme, Thirukkural and UNESCO for World Peace and Harmony, we will have the privilege of having Professor Abe Quadan from Australia, and we'll be joined by Victoria Sharp, who will be the talk today is Thirukkural a culture of peace? I think the theme itself is very interesting, and we are very much looking forward to the presentation by Professor Abe. Let me have the special privilege of introducing to you a very distinguished personality, Professor Abe Quadan, who was born in a refugee camp in Jordan of a Palestinian background. Abe's early childhood was spent in bomb shelters. He witnessed firsthand the impact wars and conflicts had on civilians. This inspired him to pursue a career in conflict resolution in Australia. Abe is a nationally accredited mediator and an accredited family dispute resolution practitioner. He worked in the child protection area for several years. He's also experienced in family group conferencing, youth justice conferencing, and restorative justice. Professor Abe is the vice chair of the Cambodia Mediation Center. He delivered a number of training courses to lawyers in Cambodians. Abe is currently working with the center to establish a nationwide mediation service. He was also executive member of the Sydney Peace Foundation since 2004. He recently retired from his teaching job with the University of Sydney, where he was the course coordinator and lecturer and taught mediation theory and practice in the postgraduate program. Professor Abe is passionate about peace with justice and strongly believes that conflicts should be resolved peacefully. He worked with the Sri Lankan Tamil Reconciliation Group and facilitated a number of conflict management workshops for the community leaders from Congo, Uganda, Rwanda, and Burundi. He's the co-founder of two Palestinian Jewish dialogue groups. Professor Abe is the initiator of the Youth Peace Initiative, Sydney Peace Foundation. He's also a strong believer that religion is a connector, and it has a role to play in creating peace and harmony amongst people if understood and interpreted the way it was intended for. In the past few years, Professor Abe met with a number of African politicians, peace activists, and academics with the hope of launching a movement, less weapons, more social justice. The idea is based on asking government to buy one less tank jet fighter a year and redirect the money towards education, health, social services, youth employment. Professor Abe inspired the writing of a theatrical play, The Laden Table, which tells the story of a Jewish family, fishermen, and a Palestinian family, Quadan, based on his family's story. He also facilitated a workshop for members of the Philippines Catholic Education Department to develop a peace-building program in the Catholic schools. I think we will all realize and recognize that Professor Abe is the very apt person to deliver a talk on Thirukkural, and he has taken up this challenging topic, is Thirukkural a culture of peace? And we have had a number of speakers since January 2021. So far, we've had 12 past conferences, and this one is the 13th conference. And I was pleased to hear that Professor Abe is very happy that this is the 13th conference because he was born on the 13th. And so he finds it a good coincidence. I told him he was born on a Friday the 13th, but we are lucky to be having a Saturday 13th today. And I'm sure this will give you the right sort of inspiration of coming back to your birth yourself in such condition that you said, where you witness conflicts, you witness you being in a refugee camp. The childhood experience must have inspired and led to what the philosophy you have in life. And I think you rightly dedicated yourself to this mission for which you should have been predestined to deal with peace and conflict resolution, I think, which is the need of the hour. And I would like to dedicate to you the Quran verse 474, which says, I quote, "Who not agrees with those around, no moderation knows, in self-applause indulging, swift to ruin goes." And I will give the explanation. "He will quickly perish who, ignorant of his own resources, flatters himself of his greatness and does not live in peace with his neighbors." I think I just want to dedicate that verse to you, but I'm sure you yourself have dwelled deep in Thirukkural now, following your two past conferences, one in Sydney and one in New Delhi at UNESCO. I'm sure you have already developed a lot of interesting idea that you will share with us today. And this will add tremendously to the various conferences we've had so far. And I'm sure that the topic itself, I must say, is very, very interesting. As you said, is Thirukkural a culture of peace? And we are promoting Thirukkural and UNESCO for world peace and harmony. I always like to, I may have to repeat it again, what UNESCO says and what you've been doing in your area of peace and conflict resolution is trying to work on the mindset of people. If we can change the mindset, like the leaders, where you call on them to not to spend money on one tank a year, and how much they could do for the betterment of humanity. And in that line, I would just like again to repeat the famous quote of UNESCO, which aligns with Thirukkural and with what you are doing, which says it is in the preamble to the Constitution of UNESCO, "Since wars begins in the minds of men, it is in the minds of men that the defenses of peace must be constructed." I believe this gives us the right platform to set this mission to take UNESCO Thirukkural to the world. But before I give the floor, I would like also to say that how privileged and honored we are. And for me, I'm happy to see Victoria Sharp again after the Sydney encounter, where we participated in the international conference on Thirukkural. Well, we welcome you, Ms. Victoria Sharp, who you've distinguished yourself the World Peace Flame Global Ambassador to Australia. You are very passionate about peace building and issues, and therefore it was very appropriate to have you to join Professor Abe in doing the flame lighting today. Victoria was an executive member of the Sydney Peace Foundation, and she has been working with the World Peace Flame for many years, taking into schools and parliament. She has been instrumental in the presentation of the flame to many Australian members of parliament, as well as groups like the Parliamentary Wives Group and the Sydney Peace Committee. Victoria, in recognition for her work, was awarded the World Peace Flame Prize at a ceremony in the Peace Palace in The Hague. So we are very honored to have you, and I'm sure the flame that you will lit today will hopefully take us more further into the direction of world peace and harmony for which we're all working together. So with these few words of introduction to our two eminent speakers, I'll now invite Professor Abe to deliver his talk. And you let me know when the flame will be done, after your speech or
no, I think
beginning.
Victoria will start with the flame.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful, very good. So therefore we leave it to Victoria. We're waiting to see the flame lighting.
That's beautiful. It's such a great honor and privilege to be with you. You know, I would like to acknowledge the Thirukkural message of peace and the ancient Tamil philosopher Valufa, and I want to thank also to you sponsors of this international conference, Dr. Parisaman and Dr. Chandrika. I'd also like to acknowledge my friend and colleague, Abe Quadan, who is your speaker this evening, and he truly lives his message to you and acts in the world for the good of all, as you all do. I'm greatly privileged to be in your company tonight, and I really acknowledge that we also I would also like to deeply honour and speak on behalf of us all to acknowledge the First Nations people of this land, Australia, and to celebrate their enduring connections to country, knowledge and stories. As we gather here online today and tonight, wherever we are in the world, from many countries of the world, raising peace, uplifting peace, may we create together a significant moment to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land we live on. Here in the Southern Highlands, where in New South Wales and Australia where I live, I acknowledge the Gurungara people, recognising their connection to this land and waters, and thank them for protecting this land and the ecosystem since time immemorial. We pay respect to the elders, past and present, and extend that respect to all First Nations people of future generations. Maramali, healing in the spirit of peace. And thank you, friends of peace, for the wonderful gesture of hope and acknowledgement by giving me the opportunity to light the World Peace Flame for this enlightening and inspirational conference. It reminds me greatly of a inspiration of Michelangelo, who created the great masterpiece, David. And as he completed this masterpiece, David, he was there with the people, and the people came to him and they said, Michelangelo, how did you create this wonderful masterpiece? And Michelangelo said to the people, well, friends, I just chipped away at anything that wasn't David. And I believe that we too can chip away at anything that is not peace. We have, we have the greatness of what we have within us to create peace in this world, a culture of peace. And if we just keep chipping away at anything that is not peace, we will thrive and survive and live together in peace and harmony, I believe. The masterpiece of the World Peace Flame was created and lit in July 1999 in 7 beautiful ceremonies, peace ceremonies in 5 continents of the world. These ceremonies in 7 countries, 5 continents of the world, were where the flames were lit on in those places, were done by eminent peacemakers, children, politicians, those of just good heart and good mind, again, just seeing the very highest for humanity. And those 7 flames were flown by Air Force aircraft to Britain and lit as one flame. And that one flame was lit from the 7 and then has gone back out into the world as the World Peace Flame, is now being offered and received by over 10 million people now, and it's growing every day. Because it is a living flame, and this living flame of peace can be given with such heart and good heart and good mind throughout the community, whether it be in the parliaments, in schools, in doctors' surgeries, in our homes, and to our friends. One of the wonders of the World Peace Flame is it inspires teachers, particularly and children, with the education pack, the Peace in Your Hands education pack. And this just gives a platform for children to be creative and to explore avenues and creativity in building peace in their schools and within them, between each other, and for this beautiful planet Earth and the creatures we're responsible for. I believe we can do that with our children, and what a beautiful way to share peace through our children and through a living flame of peace. The World Peace Flame is an initiative that came from a small group of people and has expanded into a world that embraces a living flame. So thank you for allowing me to share this with you tonight. I'm going to do this in a much more technological way. I generally do it face to face, but how the wonders of this new medium that we have. So work with me here, and we're going to do it together as an international group on a Zoom. How wonderful that we can continue to share the flame in this way. So I'm going to do this now with you. So just work with me here. I'll just move a bit of furniture. And I think you can see World Peace flame here. I light this for the peace in the world, peace in our own hearts, peace between us, and peace for this beautiful planet Earth and her creatures. I'm going to bring her nice and close to you.
Thank you very much.
There we go.
We can see the flame. We can
There we go.
feel also the vibrations that you are offering to us.
Yes.
To it. Go ahead,
So-
Victoria.
So a lovely thing to do with this flame, as you can see it now, perhaps you might take a moment to just to look at the flame and to connect with this beautiful flame of living, this living flame of peace. And as you breathe in, imagine that you can breathe in the peace of this living flame. Breathe this beautiful living flame of peace into your heart. And as you breathe out, allow this living flame to flow through your heart and your body. And as you breathe in and out, as you focus on the flame, breathe in this flame, this living flame of peace. And then as you breathe out, allow this beautiful living flame to flow from your body and into the space around you. Breathe in this living flame of peace into your heart, your body, and the space around you. And as you breathe out, allow this living flame of peace to flow into the nation that you live. Breathe in this beautiful flame of living peace. And as you breathe out, allow this flame of peace, this light of peace to flow into a world of nations, a world of unity in diversity, in freedom and in light, in peace. Blessings to you all, love and peace and kindness. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Victoria. It was very, very touching moments. And my wish is that when we manage to go to UNESCO for the global conference in Thirukkural and UNESCO for World Peace, we would be very honored to have you there. We'll lit the flame, the living flame again there, and that will take it to the whole world also.
I will treasure that moment.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Professor Abe, to you now.
Thank you so much, Victoria, for reading this very touching and beautiful introduction to this talk, because I think we all part of that flame, and we are going to light the world with our knowledge, experience, as well as our learning that we are learning from the wisdom of Thirukkural and everybody else around us. Thank you so much. I'd like to thank Dr. Passerman and Dr. Shenjeka for inviting me and privileging me to be part and participate and contribute to this beautiful international conference. I thank Dr. Shenjeka for introducing me to the writing and the wisdom of Vallabha. I didn't know anything about him before I met Chandrika, and I have been reading quite a number of books about it, and I'm more wiser. And I just hope that my contribution will bring something new that I've learned and share it with all of you. I've chosen the topic of is there a culture of peace? We talk about peace all the time, and I would like to start with a quote from Albert Camus. He said, "We used to wonder where war lived, what it was that made it so hard. And now we realize that we know where it lives, that it is inside ourselves. And unless we look inside ourselves and make peace with ourselves, that when we make peace with everybody around us." And this is what Vallabha 2000 years ago has actually hinted and taught us in his wisdom. He wrote the Choral couplets, giving us advice and counsel, because are meant to guide us, individuals, communities, and nations. They teach us how to deal with conflicts at all levels. They teach us how to deal with conflicts, and in fact, teach us how to prevent conflicts. The course have 114 chapters. Each chapter contains the teachings in one area of our life. Thirukkural is an ancient classic Tamil literature written by the philosopher and poet Vallabha. The word Thirukkural is made up of two words. Thiru means honorable, and Kua means short and precise. It is about morality, virtues of people and nations, and is meant to be for all ages and times. The Thirukkural has three main sections, namely virtue, wealth of government, and society and love. There are 133 topics, and each topic has 10 couplets. The Thirukkural is regarded a universal code of conduct because it speaks to all the people regardless of ethnicity, religion, race, and gender. Thirukkural talks about us humans relating to other humans. The core message conveyed by the Thirukkural is nonviolence, and this message is enforced in many chapters. It is said that Mahatma Gandhi was influenced by the teachings of Vallabha. Humans throughout history have experienced wars and conflicts. Wars have always been with us because we have an inbuilt aggressive side in all of us. William James, the psychologist, noticed that wars appear to satisfy deep-rooted needs of individuals and societies, needs that were presumed to be inherent in all the humans. This desire to go to war, for whatever reason, is in fact showcase our greed, selfishness, and glory, or some might call it power over others. And this is exactly what we are warned about in the curriculum at different chapters. The causes of war have always been few and very similar, regardless which leader, nation, a group, or individual, culture, religious, or any other background they belong to. However, war propaganda has become more sophisticated than ever before. In the early years of human history, wars were waged against external enemies. This has changed in the last decades. We were and are witness to civil wars and wars waged by dictators against their own people. And that's because of a greed for power. And they are again. If we read the Thirukkural, we find that this is exactly what Bolivar is talking about. In 1999, the UN General Assembly adopted Declaration and Program of Action on a Culture of Peace. The declaration defined a culture of peace as a set of values, attitudes, traditions, and modes of behavior and ways of life with emphasis on rejection of violence and resolving conflicts between nations and individuals through dialogue and negotiations based on respect for life and ending of violence and promotion and practice of nonviolence through education, dialogue, and cooperation. For respect for the principles of sovereignty, territorial integrity, and political independence of states and non-intervention in matters which are essentially within the domestic jurisdiction of any nation or state. For respect for and promotion of all human rights and fundamental freedoms, commitment to peaceful settlement of conflicts, efforts to meet the development and environmental needs of our present and future generations, respect for and promotion of the right to development, respect for and promotion of equal rights and opportunities for women and men, respect for and promotion of the right of everyone to freedom of expression, opinion, and information, and adherence to the principles of freedom, justice, democracy, tolerance, solidarity, cooperation, pluralism, cultural diversity, dialogue, and understanding at all levels of society. In this paper, I will be using the UN Declaration as a definition of culture of peace as a guide in comparing it to the teachings and wisdom of Bolivar. And I start with one goblet, respect for life, ending of violence. Not, he said, not killing any living being. In this chapter, Bolivar stated that killing leads to all other evil deeds. It further tells us that death dares not trample on the life of one who abides by the principle of not killing any life. And here notice, he said any life. He did not just say human. He includes every living thing on this earth. Even if one were to sacrifice one's own life, do not commit the act of taking another life. Bolivar understood the human nature and the culture of violence. Not only he warned us about killing another human, but also talked about the killing of any life, including animals, plants as well. This is illustrated by couplet 324. What is a perfect path? It is the pursuit of the principle of not slaying and the any being. Bolivar tells us that we should not harm others. He said, what use is it to be wise if one can treat others, enemies, as their own? This is in line with the saying, an enemy is one we have it met. He also invokes the karma principle by saying, harm descends on those who harm others. Hence, those who wish not to be harmed do no harm. He further stated, if you harm others, harm will visit you in the same day. Bolivar sends a clear message about violence by saying, never do a harmful deed, however small, to anyone, in any circumstance, consciously or otherwise. This is a very powerful message. A very powerful message where we are refrained from acting in a violent way towards others. The message of nonviolence is loud and clear. In developed teachings, they are in line with the UN Declaration of Cultural Peace. This message is repeated several times throughout the 133 chapters. Although there is no chapter titled the practice of nonviolence through education and cooperation, however, this message is included in many chapters and couplets throughout the Quran. Baluba praises friendship and encourages communication as well as seeking counsel from wise men before taking actions. The message of nonviolence is clear in most of the chapters. The messages of the Quran are meant to be educational, and we are being educated in that way by reading them and acting upon them. Professor Pastorman, in his book, Thirukkural, the Judgment and the Solutions, he said education should lay a strong foundation of knowledge that gives confidence, devoid of trickery to overcome the hurdles of life. Education system should be so designed to provide such a moral and virtuous pace. The emphasis on educating our children morality and virtue is important to bring up the future generation of good people. As the Professor Basserman said in his book, bringing up well-mannered children with moral values could contribute to nation building. And this is in support of teaching the Qurans in schools. The message of nonviolence is further explained and enforced with the emphasis on doing good and refraining from causing harm to others. It says, never let a day pass without a good deed. It makes this life fulfilling and the next unnecessary. A powerful message indeed. Qualified did not specify or define the good deed. He left it open as if he wanted us to practice of doing good to ourselves and to others in any way or shape we see fit. Doing good rewards the person with a great satisfaction and happiness. The true joy blossoms only due to righteous deeds. All else was unhappiness and disrepute. The daily practice of doing good is not benefiting the individual, but also benefits the community. Thus the word disrepute. Baluba recognized that doing good deeds is not limited to members of a community. He provided counsel to rulers as well. Chapter 56, Tyranny and Injustice. Baluba talked about injustice, corruption, and the human rights. And they are exactly the same thing we are talking about now in our governments, or some of the governments we have. Baluba put criminals and tyranny as equals by saying he is worse than assassin, the ruler who indulges in unjust acts. He further said, just rule yields lasting fame to a ruler. No justice, no fame. This is in line with the values of today's democracy and the human rights. He expressed concerns about the impact of injustice on the citizens. He said the tears shed by citizens subjected to intolerable grief are the weapons that erode the ruler's will. The will here is meant to be the ruler's power and influence. The world we live in is a prime example of how corrupt leadership in some countries deprive the people of their freedoms, basically human rights, equality, and unfair distribution of wealth. Baluba recognized this injustice by saying being wealthy is worse than being poor. Under an unjust ruler, the wealth of the ruling class acquired through corrupt practice is condemned and should not be accepted. And that's where the the core value of our democracy and anti-corruption. One of our parents said, he, the ruler, is worse than an assassin who ravages his citizens and indulges in unjust acts. Corrupt regimes who deny their citizens freedoms, human rights, and fair distribution of wealth are considered as unjust acts. This theme of unjust acts continues in other chapters. Prof said, investigating intensely, leading fairly, without unduly favoring anyone, analyzing and acting, constitutes justice. This is a powerful topic. Justice is served at the start of the grievance with emphasis through thorough investigation that is impartial, fair, and delivery of justice. Bolivar clearly said that justice is seen and done. This is in line with the separation of powers, the independence of the jury in modern civilized society. And it is also about what our justice system is based on, and being impartial and delivering justice to all, regardless who is standing before them. Bolivar's teachings are in line with the UN declarations of cultural peace. The Thirukkurals are full of wise verses that are applicable and guide us in our daily life. Compassion is added to the culture of peace. Compassion makes us feel and behave as a human, connecting us to other fellow human beings. It is compassion that differentiates us from many other living species. For this reason, Bolivar has paid special attention to it. He said, those who lack compassion have no eyes. Who truly have eyes cannot lack compassion. Linking compassion with eyes is significant here, because through the eyes we see the world around us, and through compassion we connect with the world we live in. Being compassionate is associated with forgiveness. He said being compassionate and patient, even with those who hurt us, is a quality most admirable. Bolivar took compassion one step further. Being compassionate with those who hurt us is first step towards de-escalating a conflicting situation. He said, whose worthy ruler can change his fools to friends? The world abides in the greatness of that good-natured man who behaves so as to turn hatred into friendship. Indeed, peace building and culture of peace is about changing foes to friends and turn hatred into friendship. This is what the great leaders do in times of conflict. Reach out to their enemies, negotiate, and make peace with them. Only then they become friends and avoid violence between them. Democracies are structured around transparency, honesty, openness, respect, and equality. Bolivar understood the roots of democracy and encouraged rulers to be fair and just with their subjects. He said the subjects ruled by the dictator are under constant threat and fear for their lives. People will not enjoy peace and live without fear if they are subjected to unfair treatment or deny their basic rights. He said when a litigation is brought to the ruler for dispensing justice, the ruler should weigh the witnesses presented impartially and decide on the punishment on the merits of the case. This is the role of courts in our modern societies. This is a basic human rights in the UN Declaration. Peace building succeeds when people feel justice has been served. In this paper, I only touched the surface of the topic with few examples that highlight the wisdom of Bolivar and his teachings. Bolivar understood the culture of peace. He provided us with the blocks to build a harmonious, peaceful, and just societies. His messages are inclusive, and touched on the role of everyone, from the ruler to the ordinary citizen. We all have a role to play in creating a culture of peace. We all find the tools to achieve it in the Thirukkural Book of Wisdom. The culture of peace is a living thing and doesn't have an end. To achieve a culture of peace, we need to get the following key ingredients from the Thirukkural Book of Wisdom. We need to have an open mind, educate ourselves about self and the other, lead by example and role modeling, discuss and not argue, taking responsibility for our own actions and behaviors, seek to understand, reach out and connect, to create the power of love and avoid the love of power. Let the past be a lesson for a better future. Peace is not a goal. It is a living thing that grows within us and around us. It needs to be nurtured. All the above are from the teachings of Bhagavan. They are the tools we need to have to create and nurture a culture of peace. The Thirukkural is indeed a culture of peace. I conclude my talk by quoting from the final chapter of the 1995 UNESCO monograph on the culture of peace. When in the course of history, there is an accumulation of changes which make possible a revolutionary transformation in social relations, the mobilization and participation of people on a vast scale. A global movement becomes possible through the development and sharing of a common vision of a new world. The time is right for such a movement and vision for a culture of peace. The transformation of society from a culture of war to a culture of peace is perhaps more radical and far-reaching than any previous change in human history. Every aspect of social relations is open for change, from the relations among nations to those between women and men. Everyone, from the center of power to the most remote villages, may be engaged and transformed in the process. The culture of peace is, at the same time, a process and a vision. As people engage in common process, their values and attitudes and behaviors grow and come to embrace a global solidarity and common vision. This takes place in the development process as those who share the project with others who have been enemies come to share a vision of indigenous, sustainable, equitable development. It occurs in the democratic process as people participate across the lines of conflict in making decisions for development and peace. It comes about in the struggle for non-violence alternatives to military action and power, for convergence of economies to peaceful. In the movement for a culture of peace, there is a task for everyone. Hopefully, the teachings of Bhagavan will help us to inspire and orient us to act and to link our efforts with those of other individuals and institutions. Bhagava's teachings should not be a lesson in a school. They should not be a lecture in a conference or in a university. They should not be something we read and forget. Bhagavad teachings and wisdom are meant to be shared, acted upon, and become a way of life and constant reminder for us how to connect us with other human beings in this universe. Each one of us is entrusted with this knowledge and enriched with the Bhagavad's wisdom. It is our duty to keep it alive and well and share. It is our duty to be role models for others to see and feel. It is our duty to uphold Bhagavad's teachings and wisdom. Bhagavad's teachings are secular and universal. They did not address the issues of one culture or race, ethnicity, group, country, or religion or tribe. They are meant for everyone in this era and beyond. In his era and beyond. This is a treasure that belongs to all of us here and everywhere else in this universe. Let us share it. I'll end this with a quote from Mother Teresa, which is quite apt and relevant to this topic. If we have no peace, it is because we have forgotten that we belong to each other. Let us each one of us play a role in keeping the culture of peace alive and well and all connected. Thank you. You are muted there, Dr. Pastor. You are muted.
Yeah, thank you. I must congratulate you for this very enlightening presentation. And you've given us a lot of good food for thought. And I would like now to invite the participants, if they have questions, they would like to have more clarification from you, and feel free. I open the floor now to discussions. So myself, I will probably ask you one question. In following the presentation, the whole challenge we have in the world, as you know, today, is the tension, the conflict situation we have between countries, between leaders, with each one having their own vision of things, and we don't manage to get to bring the convergence so that we can move towards peace. What do you think would be the what could we do? What can we do in that sort of situation? Especially at the international summit meeting.
I think one of the lessons from the Valabar, it says, don't love power, the love of power rather than the power of love. And I think we need really to think about really seriously. Someone with no gun can shoot and kill someone. We need to take the guns out of the equation first. And I recall a tribe in Africa where if they wanted to resolve conflict, what they do, they take all the weapons, the arrows and whatever else they have, and they put it in a secure place away from the meeting. And they sit there in that meeting for as long as it takes for them to resolve the conflict. And that's something I think weapons in the hands of anybody is a recipe for disaster. And if they feel strong enough, they will do anything. And they're not really motivated to have peace with each other. So I think the weapon industry and the money spent on weapons between nations is so huge, more than what we spend on health, education, building job opportunities, and the environment. We are actually braving the environment every day. And that's all because our budget is geared towards wars rather than peace. And this is the culture of peace. Unless we start to think about it, and I have been talking to a number of my colleague and friend, Vikram from India, and we talk about how much money is being spent on weapons, and yet the court system there is clogged with cases because they cannot get through them for the next 5-10 years. If they have the mediation, if they have conflict management system in place and spend money on it, they will have much better society.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much, Professor Abe. I'll leave the floor now to other participants. Mr. Rajendran?
Yes, sir. I mean, it's thanks for the wonderful lecture. It is very simple. You said finally, instead of love for power, you need to have, you need to understand the power of love. It's very simple. Same words, only you have to change the order.
Absolutely.
And how do we do that? I mean, unfortunately, the world is controlled by the Western interests, let me say so, who want to make money, who want to, money can be made, and you rightly quoted from Thirukkural that money has to come from, wealth has to be created through rightful means, peaceful means, and not by being a trader of war. And I'm telling you, we are really fortunate to hear from a person who doesn't have a merely intellectual understanding of peace, intellectual understanding of war, but an experiential understanding of war and peace. You have gone through both. Really, we are fortunate, thanks to Chandrika Subramaniam and Victoria, that when she lit the lamp, we could feel the power of peace. So you are the right person, but how do we make them to listen to this minority? I will not say minority, this is a majority, but unfortunately they are not in the position to get things done. How do we transform over a period of time?
Thank you for the question. And I'll give you an example. An Australian was fighting with the British in Second World War, and they had landing in Malta when the Germans were there. And they won the war in Malta, and they were going from one house to house, clearing the soldiers, the German soldiers. And they reached one house. The German soldier walked out of the house with white flag, hands up, not armed. And the British colonel asked the soldier, Australian soldier, go and shoot him. He said, but he's not armed. He's surrendered. So the colonel went to that soldier and shot him between the eyes. And this is true story. He came back to the soldier and he told him, never look at the enemy in his eyes. Because we humanize each other once we start looking in each other's eyes. And that's what we need, to start really humanizing each other. And once we humanize each other, we start to feel connected with each other. And that's when we start to love each other.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much.
It is, yeah. Sorry.
In fact, Walluvar, though he talks about the war situation, but he would mention about a particular stanza, how to behave on the war front. There you would say, yes, fighting is nice, but somebody is wounded. There's no question of enemy or this side or that side. He is a human being. Attend to him, he says. Helping him is the utmost form of humanism he talks about. You can talk about prison of war, how Geneva Convention, all those things we lay down now. But World War laid down 2000 years back. This is how you treat a wounded person on the war front. If war is inevitable, if war is for peace, it's oxymoron. But still, if war is for peace, then how do you handle the wounded person? I'm glad that you are in mediation, and this is the field Mahatma Gandhi chose when he was in India, when he was in South Africa. He never attempted to win a case. He only wanted to be on the side of truth. And Mahatma Gandhi's life is a great message how mediation can ultimately succeed. I just want to only one reaction from you. On the mediation front, you are there for such a long period. What's your experience? And the conflict is between the two parties. It may be relating to money, it may be relating to anything. But how do you find the attitude of majority of the people? This is my only one question. Thank you.
I think, when I was reading the Thirukkural in different chapters, I related a lot to my work as a mediator. And what happens in mediation is really getting the parties to understand themselves and understand each other. Once we have that understanding, it's easy to resolve the conflict, because it's really conflict out of ignorance. When they're sitting opposite each other, they look at each other in the eye, and they are actually being civilized and talk as a human. My concern about the future is about the warfare that is going to happen behind the computer screen, where we are sending drones and killing people without even knowing who we're killing. That's really concerning to me, because then we are more committing genocide and massacres without even blinking an eye. We are devoid from our humanity. In mediation, we bring them together. In wars, they don't care where the bomb is dropped. They just drop the bomb.
Thank you.
From behind the screen.
Thank you.
Any other intervention? Professor Ashraf?
Can you hear me? I just joined hardly 5 minutes back, so I don't have anything particular to ask. Thanks for nice to see some Australian talking about Thirukkural. That's much. That's what I have. I can say. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Dr. Chandrika, you want to? You have to unmute, Dr. Chandrika. Dr. Chandrika, you have to unmute.
You have to unmute yourself.
Sorry. Yeah. So the only one question I have, Mr. Quadan, in your journey in mediation and your experience as a family dispute resolution, because I do the same thing with you, mediation and family dispute resolution. How do you feel Valluvar is helpful to you?
Making enemies friends. When he said how to turn an enemy into a friend by talking to each other, negotiating with each other, not jumping the gun. And in many chapters he said that. That's why I'm saying I'm related to myself to him in saying that. And again, the issue as well, and quoting Mr. Kassaman in your book about the judgment, I think if we start early in schools and teaching our kids, our children, the culture of peace building, our future generation, who are going to be our leaders, going to be completely in tune with the peace that they've learned and brought up early on. That's why I'm advocating, when we're teaching lessons of history about wars, ask the students, I'm not changing the history, I'm not changing the war pattern, but ask ourselves and ask the students, what else the warring parties could have done to stop or avert that war? Let them think outside the school. War is not the only option. And that's what mediation, that's what people learn about it, is have to talk to the enemy.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Well, if we have no other, I could see Victoria would like to add something.
Oh, I'm totally on the same page with Abe. I think educating our children with really quality education to be able to encourage a platform of knowing and working with peace in our world with each other. And I think that starts with ourselves. You know, once you find peace within yourself, and how do you build that into building a healthy, strong internal peace, then I think we can share that then with a very solid foundation. And I think we can share that. I think our children are born with peace. They are the living embodiment of peace. We just need to maintain it and to share that with them through good education and tools for life.
Absolutely. I think this is a very fundamental point, you know, and this in the judgment of Justice Mahadevan, he highlighted that very much, that how if we inculcate values in the young generation, in the students, right from pre-primary, you know, if we sow the seeds of tolerance, of good values, then we will have a nation which will bring the harmony and the unity that we need. So I used, when I was Minister of Education, I was emphasizing a lot the teaching of human values in our schools, you know, and it was developed as a special program. And I managed to get all the religious leaders of the country to join together to give the support to that. And I was saying to the parents, when your child is born, for medical reason, you have to vaccinate your child, right? But then after that vaccination, when the child grows up, you have to vaccinate him with values, with good values. And when I talk about Qural, I say you have to vaccinate them every day with one Qural verse. You know, if you do that, then you will create a great human being and we'll have world peace. Because world peace will only, as Victoria said, it depends on individual peace. If we are at peace with ourselves, then we can spread peace, then we can have global peace. So that, I think, is where I again come back to UNESCO, you know, what UNESCO says about building peace in the minds of men and women. So I believe that where, and Thirukkural talks a lot about it, and if we can reach that sort of state, I think we'll be very much forward with the culture, the world peace. Thank you. So, Mr. Ranjanan, you'll have the concluding note?
Yes, sir. Thank you. At the outset, on behalf of Vali Tamil, International Thirukkural Foundation, Tamil Valarchi Mandram, and Voice of Allur family, I thank our chief guest of the day today, Ab Quadan and Victoria, for being with us and sharing your thoughts and sharing your feelings and sharing the message. And I'm really, really fortunate, as Mr. Ashraf was mentioning, our chief guest has done a great work, and he has extensively quoted from Thirukkural, and particularly the chapter relating to Kannottam, compassion, the love, and the wrong ruler and right ruler, just ruler. Everything is quoted, extensively he has quoted. And he finds the message contained in Thirukkural is nothing but the message of peace. And if we live Thirukkural, is nothing but living a peaceful life. And everyone aspire to lead a peaceful life. And how do we lead a peaceful life? And as Dr. Arvum Parasuraman was mentioning, we need to vaccinate. We need to give a booster dose. We need to give every day one pill, every day one Quran. Everything is there. It is there in the religious literature. Quadan was mentioning that, his bio has mentioned that religion, what is the role religion need to play? And what is so special about Thirukkural is it is not religious. It is secular. It's common to all religion. When he say secular, he's a believer in Almighty, but he doesn't prescribe anything. And Thirukkural talks about pros and cons. Many of the scriptures, religious scriptures says, if you don't do this, this is what the consequences. Thirukkural doesn't say so. He's very simple, very humble. He's a friend. He's a philosopher. He's a guide. And that is what makes Thirukkural is different from other religious scriptures. But a person, there is no point in speaking among ourselves. When people like Quadan and Victoria talks about Thirukkural, when quotes from Thirukkural, I'm sure it will reach us the shores, across the shores. Because Thirukkural, there's no boundaries. It's beyond boundaries. There's no frontiers. He is not bound by anything. There's only one thing which he has rightly mentioned, humanism. That is what missing. He's a great humanist. He's a great humanist, and the power of love. That is the message, core message, love and compassion, not only for the fellow human beings, all creatures which are there in the planet. You rightly mentioned, what is the role of the present society towards our future generation? Is it owned by us? No. We are only passerby. We need to pass on. We need to hand over the baton. We need to hand over the baton with a better place to live in, not the worst place, because our children will not forgive us if we don't play our role. And what is the manual? What is the book we will carry in hand? This is a secular literature. It looks at life comprehensively. It doesn't shun wealth. Wealth need to be created. Wealth need to be shared. And in my humble view, one person who led this life is Mahatma Gandhiji. And you rightly quoted from the chapter which is also inspired Leo Tolstoy. Inna Seyyama in Tamil. That particular chapter, he quoted 6 couplets. 1908, Mahatma Gandhi comes to notice of that particular letter to a Hindu written by Leo Tolstoy. They never meet each other, but this particular piece of literature, particular letter, transformed Gandhi's thoughts. Ahimsa, non-violence, is the core of Ahimsa. Is nothing but not merely non-violence, positive action to build peace. That is what the message of Valluvam. Not only fellow human being, fellow creatures, all creatures, environment. We need to be a responsible citizen. We are very, very glad, thankful to you that for being with us and sharing your thoughts with us. And this is not, I'm sure with Dr. Arvum Parasuraman in the lead, and Chandrika Subramaniam supporting from there, and Path Sardi, who had exposure to Western world. Definitely we will carry with us a message from all continents to UNESCO. A day will come, UNESCO, there will be a conference, not only merely conference. We also would like to have the statue of Valluvar, like a statue of liberty, and a statue of Valluvar. He is the one who has given a lot of thoughts for peaceful living. Peace is not our goal. Peace has to be enjoyed by us every moment. Then only we can transmit peace. Rightly, both of you, Victoria as well as Quadan, were very clearly mentioned, we need to live peace and it will automatically transmit. Thank you so much. And we also thank Dr. Arvum Parasuraman for for taking us, for guiding us, for leading this. He is in the forefront. Thank you very much, sir, and thank you, everyone. All the participants who are here, though the number may be less, I need to thank each one of you. Each one of you. We are all. It's a collective responsibility towards the humanity, and we thank all the viewers who are present here today, and the people those who are going to listen to this audio and video in the internet. Thank you so much. Thank you very much once again.